The Making of the Apu Trilogy, written by Satyajit Ray. About the story. The third part of the chapter talks about a scene from Apu Sangsar, the world of Apu, the third film of the trilogy, which focuses on adult Apu. He aspires to become a writer, but he becomes a husband, quite accidentally. It describes Apu's survival through poverty and the unexpected turn of events. In the third part of the chapter, Ray narrates an incident where spontaneity and courage saved the crew from a tragedy. Another near calamity that was averted at the last moment involved the shooting of a scene in a small boat in which Apu and his friend Pulu are making their journey to the village. The two friends, Apu and Pulu, the old oarsman, the cameraman Shubruto, the sound recordist Durgadas, Satyajit Ray himself and his first assistant Shoilan Dutt were on the boat. The scene was going on well when suddenly a huge boat was approaching at a breakneck speed from behind and making straight for the small boat on which the shooting was going on. It was a narrow part of the river and the big boat, which was approaching, would not be easily maneuverable. At that moment, Shoilan sprang to his feet, threw himself forward and proceeded to fend off the big boat with all his might. While he pushed the big boat with his hands, his feet pushed their boat away from the collision which was imminent. However, this caused the distance between the two boats to widen, causing Shoilan to lose his foothold. He was flung into the water along with his notebook which he had for keeping continuity. It was the narrowest escape from the dire disaster. Apu and his friend Pulu are making their journey to the village by a small boat. Apu has written a novel and has given Pulu the manuscript to read. While he reads it, Apu plays the flute. This is the old oarsman. This scene was going on well when suddenly Shoilan let out a cry. Seeing a huge boat approaching from behind and making straight for their small one. The collision was inevitable, but Shoilan, with his daredevilry, sprang to his feet, threw himself forward and proceeded to fend off the big boat with all his might. He used both his hands and feet to cause the distance between the two boats to widen to avoid the collision, and he ended up falling into water. This way, he saved the crew from the dire disaster. For a moment, we were at our wits' end. Who is the speaker? Satyajit Ray, the director of the Apu Trilogy, is the speaker. Where was the speaker? The speaker was on a small boat where a scene of the last film of the Apu Trilogy, Apu Sangsar, was being shot. Who else was there with the speaker? The speaker, Satyajit Ray, was with the actors Apu and Pulu, the old oarsman, the cameraman Shubruto, the sound recordist Durgadas, and his first assistant Shoilan Dutt. Why were the speaker and his companions at their wits' end? The scene was going on well when suddenly a huge boat was approaching at a breakneck speed from behind and making straight for the small boat where the shooting was going on. It was a narrow part of the river, and the big boat, which was approaching at a great speed, would not be easily maneuverable. The collision seemed to be inevitable. Thus, for a moment, they were at their wits' end. What happened thereafter? At that moment, Shoilan sprang to his feet, threw himself forward, and proceeded to fend off the big boat with all his might. While he pushed the big boat with his hands, his feet pushed their boat away from the collision which was imminent. However, this caused the distance between the two boats to widen, causing Shoilan to lose his foothold. He was flung into the water along with his notebook which he had for keeping continuity. It was the narrowest escape from the dire disaster. It was the narrowest escape from the dire disaster that I had ever experienced. Where is the line taken from? The line is taken from The Making of the Apu Trilogy, written by Satyajit Ray. Who is I referred to here? The director Satyajit Ray is referred to here as I. Who helped in escaping from the dire disaster? Satyajit Ray's first assistant Shoilen Dutt helped in escaping from the dire disaster. What do you mean by the term dire? The term dire means severe. What dire disaster is the speaker talking about? The shooting of a scene of the film Apu Sangsar in a small boat in which Apu and his friend Pulu are making their journey to the village was going on well, when suddenly a huge boat was approaching at a breakneck speed from behind and making straight for the small boat on which the shooting was going on. It was a narrow part of the river and the big boat which was approaching would not be easily maneuverable. The collision was inevitable. Satyajit Ray was talking about this dire disaster. Qualities of Satyajit Ray as a filmmaker, as learned from the story. Number 1, he had a lot of creativity. Number 2, he was a perfectionist. Number 3, he was hardworking. Number 4, he had a sense of originality. Number 5, he had a sense of reality. And lastly, he had knowledge of natural human behaviors. The theme of art and culture is predominant in this particular prose piece. As the chapter deals with the experiences of Satyajit Ray while shooting the films The Apu Trilogy, based on the Bengali artistic creations Pother Pachali and Aparajito, the masterpieces by Bibhutibhushan Bandopadhyay, it could be easily concluded that art is a predominant theme of the chapter. The chapter also portrays the then Bengali culture in a subtle manner, the rural ways of life, their ways of selling commodities, their food, their financial condition, their domestic life, household setting, ways to make journeys, taste of music, etc. It also depicts Indian culture in a broader sense. It helps us to understand the world in which we lead and Indian culture in the field of cinema through an exploration of Satyajit Ray's creativity. The narrator Satyajit Ray narrates 3 different non-fictional events in great detail in this extract from My Years with Apu. And we see that in this prose, the narrator Satyajit Ray himself is the character of all the 3 events. He is the active participant of the events of the story. Thus, this account is the first-person narrative. I have discussed the first-person narration and the third-person narration in detail in another video of mine. Link in the description box. The spirit of teamwork is quite evident in the story. In the first part of the chapter, we see that Satyajit Ray included the untrained dog in the sweetmeat seller scene for the desired effect, and for the better performance of the dog, the entire team including Durga, a man from the crew, and others made persistent attempts to get the action perfect. Secondly, in the second part of the chapter, it is stated that Subrata's and Banshi's meticulous workmanship have given the monkey scene a realistic touch, which is the unique feature of Ray's movies. Lastly, the third part of the chapter narrates how Ray and the crew had a narrowest escape from a dire disaster while shooting on river with the help of a crew member, Shoilen Dutt, Ray's first assistant. All these signify the teamwork of all the cast and crew members. This particular prose piece is a memoir, being an extract from My Years with Apu written by Satyajit Ray. A memoir is any non-fiction narrative writing based in the personal memories of the memoirist or memorialist. The assertions made in the work are thus understood to be factual. It is different from biographies or autobiographies, which are the stories of life. A memoir often tells the story of a particular event or time in the entire life. I have discussed genre in detail in another video of mine, link in the description box. That's all about the entire chapter, The Making of the Apu Trilogy, written by Satyajit Ray. Hope this video has been helpful to you all. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you.